The most terrifying last words in history. The last words a person speaks are usually nothing memorable. A name, a prayer, a whisper. But sometimes, in the seconds before death, someone says a sentence so cold or so unhinged that it outlives them by centuries. 3 of those sentences are about to ruin your night. They come from men who know exactly what is coming for them and choose their words on purpose. Giles Corey. It's September 1692, and the village of Salem in colonial Massachusetts has lost its mind. 8 months earlier, 2 little girls in the local minister's house start having fits, screaming, contorting, claiming invisible women are sticking pins in them. The doctor can't find anything wrong, so he reaches for the only diagnosis that makes sense to a Puritan in 1692: witchcraft. What follows is the kind of mass paranoia that hits a community when religion, boredom, and unresolved property disputes all collide at once. By summer, more than 150 people are accused. Neighbors turn on neighbors over old land grudges and decades-old slights. 20 have already been hanged. The jail is so packed that prisoners are chained in groups, women and men together, sleeping on damp stone. Into this mess walks Giles Corey. He's 81 years old, tall, broad in the shoulders, even at his age, a farmer who has worked the same fields for half a century. His third wife, Martha, has already been arrested for witchcraft. He has tried to defend her. That alone is enough to put a target on his back. Within weeks, Corey is named too. The accusers, the same teenage girls whose performances have been running the show all year, claim he visits them at night as a specter and crushes them in their beds. Now, here's where the story gets cruel in a way you have to slow down to understand. In English common law of the time, a defendant has to enter a plea before a trial can begin. Guilty or not guilty. Without that plea, the court can't move forward. If Corey pleads not guilty, he goes to trial. In Salem in 1692, going to trial means hanging. Nobody beats these charges. Spectral evidence is enough. The judges believe the girls. Worse, a conviction means the state seizes everything you own. Corey has land, livestock, a working farm. If he's convicted, his sons and sons-in-law lose every inch of it. If he pleads guilty, same outcome. Hanged, estate seized. But if he refuses to enter any plea at all, refuses to even acknowledge the court's authority over him, the law has one option left, an old English procedure called peine forte et dure. Strong and harsh punishment. They press a confession out of you. Literally. Corey understands the trade. If he stays silent, he dies. But the property stays with his family. So on September 17, the sheriff and his men march Corey to a field next to the Salem jail. They strip him naked. They lay a heavy oak board across his chest, and then they start placing stones on it. A stone. Then another. Then another. Every few minutes, the sheriff leans down and asks for a plea. Corey says nothing. More stones get added. The pressure on his ribs is grinding. His breath is coming in shallow, stuttering pulls because the weight is collapsing his lungs into a smaller and smaller space. His tongue swells and pushes out of his mouth. The sheriff, in a moment recorded by witnesses, takes the tip of his cane and pushes Corey's tongue back in. Hours pass. The sun moves. More stones. The crowd is watching. Some are praying. Some are crying. Some want to see how long this old man can take it. Corey is going purple. His eyes are bulging. Capillaries in his face are popping. Witnesses say his ribs crack audibly under the weight. The sheriff asks one more time. Plead. Just plead. Anything. Make this stop. Corey looks up at him. His mouth is full of blood. And he uses his last breath to say 2 words. More weight. Not a prayer. Not the name of his wife. A command. Stack on more. They do. He dies under the next load. Sit with what that line is actually doing. He has spent the better part of 2 days being slowly crushed to death. The whole point of the torture is to make him give the court something, anything that it wants. Submission, acknowledgement, a flinch. By saying more weight, he denies them all of it. He tells them their cruelty is not big enough to break him, and he wants to prove it. He is also, in a quieter way, protecting his family. Because he never enters a plea, the estate doesn't get seized. His sons-in-law inherit. His refusal to play the game costs him his life and saves their futures. 3 days later, his wife Martha is hanged. He died under stone, but never under their control. The next man didn't resist death. He made a joke out of it. James French. It's the night of August 10th, 1966, and the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester is quiet in the way prisons get quiet right before something irreversible happens. In a holding cell, a 30-year-old man named James Donald French is being walked through the last paperwork of his life. He's about to be the only person executed in the United States that entire year. The country has effectively paused capital punishment while the courts argue about whether it's legal. French stands alone. He's getting the chair. French is not somebody you'd expect to draw the attention of history. He's a small, wiry man from a poor background. As a teenager, he has already been in and out of trouble. In 1958, he picks up a hitchhiker on a stretch of Oklahoma highway and shoots him for almost no reason at all. Court documents call it wanton, calculated murder. He goes to prison with a life sentence. But James French doesn't want a life sentence. He wants to die. So in 1961, while serving that sentence, he strangles his cellmate, a man named Eddie Lee Shelton, by tying a strip of cloth around his neck and pulling. He does this for one specific reason. He knows the only way to get a death penalty in Oklahoma is to commit a murder while already serving a life sentence. He has, in the most literal sense, killed a man in order to be killed himself. He admits all of it at trial. He sits on death row for 5 years afterward. Lawyers try to get him off. He fights them. He wants the chair. He spends those years writing letters joking about his own execution. By the time the night of August 10 arrives, French has been giving interviews. Reporters have come from across the state to watch. He's gotten attention before. He likes it. He's a chronic performer. Guards describe him as a man who needs to be looked at, who plays to whoever is in the room, who treats his own murder trial like a long bit. Now the bit is ending. He's led from his cell down the corridor to the chamber. The walk is short. The lights are bright. Reporters and witnesses are seated behind a glass panel. Some of them are smoking. Some are taking notes. The air smells like floor polish and old electrical wiring. The chair sits in the middle of the room, and the temperature in there feels like it drops a little when he steps in. Straps come down over his arms. The leather across his chest is tightened. A wet sponge is pressed against his shaved scalp to conduct the current cleanly. They place the cap. This is the part of the procedure where almost everybody, no matter how tough they've talked, has a moment. Some go silent, some cry, some pray, some say the name of a person they love. The witnesses lean forward. The reporters click their pens. The warden asks if he has any final words. French turns his head, as much as he can with the cap on. He looks straight at the row of journalists, and he says, "How's this for your headline? French fries." Then they throw the switch. You have to sit with that line, read it again. The method is electrocution. He is about to be cooked alive by 2,300 volts in a chair built for that exact purpose. His last act on earth is to write the headline for the journalists watching him die. He even gets the pun. French. French fries. It's the perfect example of a man so cynical, so allergic to taking anything seriously that he does not have the emotional architecture to be afraid in any normal way. He has been performing his entire life. There is no one underneath the performance to feel scared, so the performance keeps going right up to the last second. Some of the psychologists who study his case afterward argue that French's whole life, including the murders, is a long act of trying to get someone to look at him. The first crime is a way to get attention. The death sentence is a way to extend it. The final words are the punchline he has been building toward for years. Newspapers the next morning run the line on their front pages. He gets his headline. The punchline outlives him by 60 years. Every serious list of famous last words in the English language now includes it. He turned his death into copy. And now the most disturbing one. Not bravery, not humor. Desire. Peter Curtin. It's 1929, and the city of Dusseldorf, Germany, is afraid to walk home at night. Over the course of about a year, somebody has been killing people in the streets and parks of the city. Children, young women, the occasional man. The methods change: hammers, scissors, a pair of knives, Knives are the favorite. The killer slashes throats and stabs torsos, and then, in some cases, drinks the blood from the wounds. He leaves the bodies in places where they will be found quickly, almost like he is showing the city what he is doing. Newspapers start using a name for him, the Vampire of Dusseldorf. The killings are frenzied and they are frequent. By 1930, the police have over 900 false confessions from people trying to take credit, claim insurance money, or just get attention. The actual killer walks past investigators on the street. They have no idea. His name is Peter Curtin. He is 47. He lives with his wife, who has no clue what he is. He has a job. He's polite to his neighbors. By day, he is so unremarkable that detectives later describe him as the most boring-looking man they ever interrogate. By night, his life is a nightmare he loves. Curtin grows up in a household that, to put it plainly, breaks him before he is old enough to read. His father is a violent alcoholic who beats his mother, his siblings, and him. By age 9, Curtin is setting fires and torturing animals. By his teens, he is committing arson because in his own later confession, the screaming of fire engines and the panic of crowds give him sexual pleasure. The violence and the arousal fuse in him so early that he cannot separate them. By the time he reaches Dusseldorf as an adult, he has been managing this fantasy for decades. Now he has escalated. The arson becomes assault, the assault becomes murder. And murder, for him, is the only thing left that still produces the feeling. The police catch him almost by accident. In May 1930, he attacks a young woman named Maria Budlik. She survives. He, bizarrely, walks her home afterward and tells her his address, apparently convinced she won't be able to find her way back. She does. She tells the police. They knock on his door. He confesses to everything, not just the Dusseldorf killings, but a backlog of attacks going back decades. By the time he is done talking, the count is at least 9 murders and dozens of attempted ones, and historians later believe the real number is higher. The trial is a national event. Germany is in the late Weimar period. The country is fragmenting politically, and here is this small, clean-shaven man on the stand, calmly describing how the screams of dying women excited him. He is sentenced to die 9 times over, once for each murder. The execution is set for July 2nd, 1931. The method is the guillotine. In the early morning of that day, in the courtyard of Klingelputz prison in Cologne, Curtin is led from his cell. He is wearing a dark suit. He has eaten a final meal of Wiener Schnitzel, fried potatoes, and white wine, and asked for seconds. By every account, he is calm, not nervous, not resigned, calm in a way the guards find unsettling. The blade is up. The block is waiting. A priest is offering last rites. The small group of officials who have to be there are standing in a half circle. The morning is cool. There is birdsong from somewhere outside the wall. Curtin stops walking for a second. He turns to the prison psychiatrist, a man named Carl Berg, who has been studying him for months, trying to map the inside of his head. And he asks Berg a question. He asks, when the blade comes down, when his head is severed from his neck, will he, for one brief instant, still be able to hear the sound of his own blood gushing from the stump of his neck? He says, that would be the pleasure to end all pleasures. Then he walks calmly to the block. Sit with what just happened in that sentence. Most people in the seconds before their execution are thinking about death. Curtin is thinking about a sensation. He is curious whether his own murder will produce, for him, the same ecstatic experience that murdering other people produced. He is hoping, in the last conscious thought he will ever have, to be aroused by his own decapitation. That is not bravery. It is not nihilism. It is not even normal psychopathy. It is a mind so completely fused with its own pathology that even the moment of its own destruction becomes another opportunity to feel the thing it has always wanted to feel. The horror is not that he isn't afraid. The horror is what he is, instead of afraid. Berg writes about this conversation in his report later. He never forgets it. He spends his career interviewing violent men. He says Curtin is the only one who frightens him in a way he cannot put into words. The blade falls at 6 in the morning. It takes a fraction of a second. Whatever Curtin hears or doesn't hear in that moment dies with him. These weren't final speeches. They were final confessions. A confession of will. A confession of cynicism. A confession of want. 3 men. Three doors out of life, three sentences that survive the people who said them. Pay attention to what someone says when they have nothing left to lose. It is the truest thing they will ever tell you.